Welcome everybody. So in today's video, I'm going to be diving into the most highly anticipated topic in trading, the most discussed topic in trading today, which is unfortunately backtesting, and it is a myth from top down. People have misconstrued what backtesting was actually supposed to be about and how it is supposed to be used. I'll give you the proper way to use backtesting if you're going to use it at the end of the video, and what it's actually designed to do in the first place, again, which people have misconstrued. Unfortunately, traders nowadays are being taught the more you backtest, the more confidence you're going to gain, i.e. the better results you're going to have, etc, etc. So what traders program in their mind from the get-go when they start out is that the more I test, the more money I can ideally make in the live markets. And then they start doing all these calculations and they build a false perception, a false reality in their mind by which they operate, which affects their live trading performance, and they're in a whirlwind for a long time. So this is a massive facade. I'm going to show you guys some studies as well that actually prove cognitive function when live trading the markets, and also a flight simulation comparison. That is a very common comparison that's done in trading when it comes to backtesting. We'll dive into that. I've got studies to show that. I'll also provide you with a little bit of an experiment that you can deploy. So this is going to be a very practical video by which you can prove to yourself the existence of emotions, and I cannot even believe I'm saying this right now. Right? I don't understand how unintellectual you must be and out of tune with yourself you must be to think that emotions are not present and don't affect your trading performance and also your cognitive ability to make the right decisions in live trading. It's sad that I'm having to make this video, but again, people out there unfortunately think like this and are being taught this. It's terrifying. I'm going to debunk the entire of this. So what is backtesting, to state the obvious? The act of accumulating past price data with regards to your trading methodology, of course. Now many people don't have a clue in the world why they're doing this or how to do it correctly, because they've been taught this programming, this brainwashing, which is what it is, that the more data you accumulate, as I said, the better you're going to perform, the more money you're going to make. So to them, they think, the more hours I put in trading, because that's what I've been told, right? Put in the hours, all these things, and if I put in more hours when I test, I'm going to make more money. So they'll segregate with their trading friends 2 to 3 hours a day, different pairs or the same pair, and they will religiously backtest until they've got so much data that their eyes are bleeding. So the majority of traders presume that there is a correlation between how much data they collect, as I said, in backtesting, which is the key term here, and confidence in decision making when trading the financial markets live. Right? And this presumption exists due to the ideology that experience is gained when backtesting. But here's a $1 million question, guys. What type of experience is actually gained when you're testing? Fabricated and emotionless experience. Now this creates a false reality for financial traders, and it is true, however, that data does not lie. And I totally agree with that. Data does not lie. But what type of data? The right data, and I'll go into what that actually is in a second. Now, of course, you can witness your trading methodology working, and yes, it does provide the individual with confidence that the methodology works, but it goes a lot deeper than that in live trading, which we'll talk about in a second. Now to continue, if you use a formula by the prior explained logic that states the amount of data collected, X equals greater performance Y, and this is what we have. As X goes up, Y goes up. So the more data we collect, the greater that we're going to perform in the live markets. That's the presumption that we're sold nowadays, right? So let's look at a brand new financial trader's journey to understand this formula a little bit more. Step 1, usually the first stage, which is they have sourced a trading methodology. They found a course or a mentorship program, and they begin learning that trading methodology via course or mentorship content. However that's constructed, of course, different for everybody. Now the basis of the system is learned to assist the trader in understanding the mechanics or language of the methodology that they're learning, their system, in the financial markets. How does it actually operate? How can I actually apply this? How does it work in the markets? How does this allow me to interpret the markets? Because your trading strategy, or anybody's trading strategy, is just an interpretation at its core. The markets never play out because your analysis said so. Your analysis job, your system's job, is just to put you on the right side of volume and order flow as many times as possible, or as effective as possible. So the only reason why your trade played out is because you just happened to be on the right side. Your analysis just gives you the probability of that being true the majority of the times. So we have to understand that, right? Just because you've got all these confluences and all these things, that does not mean the trade is going to play out, which is, I know, obvious to you guys, but I have to reiterate that. Now, this knowledge is then applied in simulated conditions. Again, why? Because they're taught falsely, unfortunately, that go and test this pair or these pairs, collect as much data as you can, and then before you know it, you'll have this astoundingly high confidence, and then you can now apply that in the live markets, and you'll perform almost exactly the same. You'll emulate the same peak performance in the live markets. So this application of knowledge continues for months and months. And again, I've done this myself, so I'm talking from my own experience, and also so far this year, and even before I was a coach, I used to speak to traders all the time in the community and outside of my own trading community. Alright, I don't just speak to traders in our own ecosystem, I speak to many traders. Every single one of them, even the ones that are now trading a high amount at a high level, have said that backtesting had nothing to do with their performance in the live markets. Zero. Zilch. So that's why I've got to understand this logic here, right? And I'll help you guys understand this logic in this presentation and how we can actually dissimulate this and break this down for good. So the trader then finds their edge, in quotations, and comes to find that they are profitable under these simulated conditions. Now, to what degree? That's going to change over time as you get better as a trader, i.e. you understand your system better in this particular circumstance that I'm talking about. Under simulated conditions, you'll naturally perform better because you know more surrounding your system. However, what people have got wrong in trading today is that they need to know more in order to extract more profitability to the markets, and where they misconstrued that is that that's only true for a set period of time, as I've just discussed. For the first 6 to 8 months, you'll have a massive amount of knowledge that comes into your mind, into your stimulus, right, whereby you can then apply that to the market, and then the better you refine that over time, the more you understand that in its simplest form. All these different variables actually have a correlation to how you're performing in simulated conditions, of course, or how much of an understanding that you have of your system. Obviously, if I give someone a trading system to learn and they've been learning it for a month compared to someone who's been learning it for a year, the results are going to be different. I don't deny that reality, but there does come a point where both traders will know enough to become profitable. That's the key distinguishment I'm trying to make here. And that level of profitability will actually vary now over time, positively, hopefully, for traders, when they gain more experience trading that system. And that doesn't have to mean that they know more around that system or they know more about the market. It's that they know that system a lot deeper and a lot better of what they already know, right? So they can then apply that better. So you have to make sense of that, because it's very important to understand this. Otherwise, you're going to be chasing your tail for a long time. And how I trade my system 5 years in now compared to when I was a year in is far different. I would argue I know the exact same things about our system, barring a few tiny little alterations here and there that we've actually had recently, the refinements that we've had for the system. But I knew enough a long time ago surrounding our system to become profitable. But why wasn't I profitable in that time? You've got to ask yourself this question. If you know enough, i.e. when you test, you're profitable, why can you not emulate the same performance in live conditions? What's that gap? Ask yourself that. Because surely if more testing meant better performance, then you should be performing the same way in the live markets. Oh, but emotions don't exist, do they? Food for thought. Now, with this newfound confidence, the trader begins to try and emulate this performance in live conditions, and of course, as I just mentioned, is far different in the live conditions. And again, before I carry on, just continuing my prior point, because this thought just came into my head. As you continue to trade your system further, and when I mentioned that you get to know it deeper, the lens, okay, your eyes, perception, by which you view the market from, is going to adapt more and more. Let me give you an example of sunglasses. If I was to give you a pair of, say, blue sunglasses, and the lens are covered in fingerprints, right, when I give them to you, and I say to you that the longer that you wear these, every day that you wear these, one fingerprint off those lenses will disappear. And eventually, if you wear them long enough, all the fingerprints are going to disappear, and you can now see clearly through that lens. Trading is exactly the same. Your system is a lens. You have to wear the lens. You have to trade the system. You have to understand it. And the longer that you trade that system, the better that you get to know it. Even the most simplest things. I mean, it can be the most basic elements of your system. Let's just say support and resistance as an example, right? Like your system might have 3 basic mechanics, and that is it. And you may understand them within the space of 2 or 3 months. The longer you trade those 3 basic mechanics over a period of time, you'll be able to apply them better in different conditions, different circumstances in the market. You'll be able to vary around them a lot easier. Okay, but that's only done through building experience trading that system. And what happens is the lens that you're now training to view the market from, or to see the market from, it becomes much more clearer. And trading becomes much more easy over time and stress-free, because you've not got all these different beliefs going around your head, because there's an insufficiency in the way that you know your system. Now, that's not an insufficiency of knowledge of the market, which people have again misconstrued. They think they need to know more about the market. It's knowing more about your one system and knowing it at a deeper level, even sometimes the most basic and simple things around your system, applied effectively over a period of time, that's going to allow you to extract profitability in the markets eventually. That's what I mean by that. Whereas the whole notion of more knowledge equals greater performance, as I said, is only true for the first portion of your journey. By then, once you've gained the correct or sufficient amount of knowledge, it's about deepening that more. It's about applying that more, getting more controlled with that, getting more consistent with the application of that. Then over time, you'll find little refinements here and there that you can add in, to your system. It could be intricate things. For example, like I look at trades where they're much more safer to take on the hourly as opposed to the 15-minute. It's the same concepts that I knew for a long time. It's just applied differently. So we have to understand that it's not about expansion, it's about deepening. So these are the core differences between simulated and live trading, which is something we have to state here to understand. Number 1 is time difference, of course. So you can trade, as I put here in quotations, through an entire year within 30 minutes. What does that do? It warps the trader's perception around real-time trading, resulting in untrained patience in the live conditions. This is what I've never understood. You're being taught that patience is the most important trait, which I agree it is in trading, amongst the most important traits anyway that a trader has. But then you're being told to backtest at the same time. So if patience is an idealistic trait to have as a trader, and in backtesting you cannot train patience because time is warped in backtesting, how is that going to work? How are you training patience? It creates a friction. This is a conflict of interest. Number 2, obviously there's no financial risk when testing. Therefore the outcome becomes irrelevant to the trader, as they can't lose nor win anything. See, many people are just taught about, this is how you can deal with your losses, just thinking probabilities. Okay, Einstein, if it was that easy just to thinking probabilities, we would have done it a long time ago. You can't learn to thinking probabilities by just seeing the data from 1994 to 2016. You can't. That's not how you learn to thinking probabilities. Thinking probabilities goes directly against our biological nature as human beings when it comes to thinking and our psychology and how we've evolved over millions and millions of years. We've not been designed and programmed to thinking probabilities. So visual interpretation, visually seeing trades and seeing probabilities is not going to be a way or a medium by which you can actually alter the way that you're biologically designed to think. The only way that you can do that is stress. Very important. And where do you gain stress? In the live market. So stress trained properly and stress monitored properly can eventually evolve the way that you think, and it can actually mold your brain, because your brain, your way of thinking is malleable. How do you think that your personality that you've got now, as I mentioned in a prior video, how do you think that the way that you think now was embedded into you? It was molded into you as a byproduct of social circumstance, environmental circumstance, many things, interpretation, stress, all these different kind of things. It could be emotional stress, there's dietary stress, there's energetical stress, there's many different types of stress that we experience as human beings, physical stress, that actually alter the way that we think. Traders have to put themselves through an element of stress in the live conditions to actually alter their brain biology, and you cannot do that in testing. So you can't think probabilistically just because you've seen trades play out in the past. So number 3, only one instrument is tested at a time and not multiple. This again builds a false perception in the trader's mind around live trading and becoming situationally sharp in the markets. And of course, decision making in its truest form cannot be trained here. It is impossible to train your decision making in its most effective form in backtesting. It can't be done because there's nothing at stake. There's no pressure. So how are you going to actually decipher between making a great quality decision or a poor decision when there's no incentive in terms of the outcome? You can't lose anything or make anything. Is that really going to be an accurate representation of your decision-making skill when there's nothing at stake? I mean, anybody can make a decision when there's nothing at stake. But why is it as soon as something is at stake, your decision-making abilities are actually altered? And that's proven in many, many studies, again, some of which I'll dive into now, and I'll even got the link to these down below in the description. So again, for any of you who want to look into it deeper and actually give it time to understand it, you can read through these very, very vigorously done studies, and you can understand them. And you can again come to the same conclusion that emotions are obviously present when trading live. But let's not steer off here. Let's stick to the topic that I'm talking about here, which is number 3. There's going to be situations for most of you who trade more than one instrument, whether it's 2 or 3 even. It doesn't have to be more than 5, 6, 7, 10. Even if you guys trading 3 instruments, 3 different markets. What if there's a situation now where 1 out of 3 of the instruments that you're trading has showed you a setup? You know it's a higher risk setup. You know you shouldn't be taking it, although it does fit your criteria. It's going to bring about extra risk on your portfolio. And you know that the other 2 instruments, as an example, the other 2 markets, they can provide you with a better setup, potentially, because they've not shaped up yet. But if they do, they are much, much more preferred setups. They're lower in risk. They are more feasible to have in your portfolio. But they could set up in a day or 2. But you have this bias that you need to get involved in the market because you've missed multiple trades recently. You're goal oriented, right? Because now you've programmed yourself into thinking that action equals outcome in the markets. And you think, well, if I take this trade and if it does play out and I do make money, great. And if it doesn't, I'm going to beat myself up over not taking it because then it would have played out. You know how dangerous that way of thinking actually is? How many of you think like that and not profitable? I'm assuming the majority of you. And again, I'm not saying that to disrespect anybody. It's just the truth. I've been through this. I know. Not just me. Multiple traders that are far more successful than me as well. This is a known fact in the market. So there's going to be biases in programs that push you. No matter how sharp you think you are. No matter how well trained you think you are emotionally. Even though that's almost impossible, as I said, when it comes to testing. No matter how self-aware you think you are. When there's a bias strong enough, your subconscious, which is the most powerful part of your brain, will override your conscious and do the decision making for you. Your psychology will trade for you. And if you haven't yet experienced this, you cannot classify yourself as an experienced trader, and also you're likely not even trading a substantial amount of capital, whereby the wins actually mean anything to you. It's very important to understand. So decision making, it can be altered, and it's situational in the market, and backtesting cannot account for that. Now, this is the common comparison, which is flight simulation. So I'm going to pause this. I'm going to open up a study. I'm going to brief through it because, of course, there's a lot of unimportant things in there. This is not an aviation course. This is still about trading. Just to demonstrate, though, to you guys that, again, it's so sad that I'm having to explain this. Why would emotions not be present when a pilot is piloting a plane for the first time? When now, in the case of a commercial pilot, they've got 300 to 400 people behind them. Children, babies, families, real people, whereby if in this circumstance they lose, per se, death is going to come to them quicker than they could ever imagine. Death is staring at them right in the face, and you're telling me there's going to be no pressure. Even if it's a single piloted plane, they're still going to die if they do something wrong. Regardless of how many flight hours they've accumulated. Flight hours and flight simulation is done just to teach the pilot about the mechanical element of the plane. The maneuvers, all the engineering of the plane. There's parts of pilot school where they actually do an emotional assessment, and you'll see this in the actual experiment, the test that's actually shown in the study, so they can make sure that the pilot is emotionally correct before flying the plane. This is another reason why commercial pilots do not fly alone. Most of the time the co-pilot is more experienced, or they have somebody more experienced. There's a hierarchy of experience in a plane, you know, because if it's the pilot's first time, you can't rely on him alone, you know. So again, this is very silly that I'm having to explain this, but let's dive into it anyway. So my apologies if I've blinded some of you guys with the white screen here, but again, why the whole flight simulation comparison in the first place? Because you're told, you know, compare it to flight simulators. The more flight hours that they accumulate, you know, the more qualified they are as a pilot. You know, why do you think they don't just throw people into a plane and let them pilot it from the get-go? Obviously. But they don't understand the actual purpose of flight simulation, which is what? To train the pilot to understand the mechanics of the plane. That doesn't give the pilot the sole confidence to fly the plane, because there's a difference in flying a plane in simulation, whereby nobody dies. You can crash the plane as many times as you want. You can just click reset and you're back again. Your life is not at stake. So there's nothing at stake, you see? So the emotional element when it comes to flying a simulated plane is going to be night and day different, as you can see in this paper here. And again, both these studies, there's another one after this as well, regarding actual emotions, trading stocks or the markets in general, which you can see, just to keep it more trading related as well. Both of these are attached in the description, so you can read through them in your own time. So what do we have here? The effects of emotion on pilot decision making, a neuroergonomic approach to aviation safety. Very simple. The paper goes into it, right? As you can see, all the studies here that are done. A lot of all of this procedure is irrelevant. It's more so the actual result in itself that's important, which they discuss in the abstract here, as we can see. So, emotion or stress can jeopardize decision making, relevance, and also cognitive functioning. In this paper, we examined planned continuation error, PCE, an erroneous behavior defined as a failure to revise a flight plan despite emerging evidence that suggests it is no longer safe. Our hypothesis is that negative emotional consequences attached to the go-around decision, which they actually explain down below as to what that is, provoke a temporary impairment of the decision-making process and favour PCE, planned continuation error. And then they go into explaining how they did that. In the end, taken together, behavioural and fMRI result support the hypothesis that PCE, planned continuation error, can be provoked by a temporary impairment of rational decision making due to the negative emotional consequences attached with the go-around. Key word or term here, negative emotional consequences. Do you have consequences when you're simulating a plane? No. Do you have consequences when you're backtesting? No. What are the consequences when you're flying a plane in real life? People die. You can die. Death is real. What are the consequences when you're trading live money? You can lose money. And what is the fear of loss biologically linked to? And this has been proven in science for so many years. Fear of death. We can't deny that we're human beings. We're not robots. And what is insane to me is that the very people that are teaching you this, that are telling you backtesting is this, it's right to do, without backtesting you're not going to be successful, all these things, they're teaching you this. They are openly admitting to you that when you test, you remove emotion. And now, when you accumulate that experience with of course, the lack of involvement of emotion, that is, you accumulate that experience with backtesting, you accumulate all that data, now when you go and trade, you can perform. Write down what I just said there and tell me, does that make any sense at all? Read it back to yourself. Does that make any sense at all? Makes zero sense. We are human beings. We respond off emotion. You can't ever strip yourself of emotion. It's physically impossible. Anybody that says, oh, just leave your emotions at the door, it is impossible. Some of the best performing traders on the planet, they learn to deal with their emotions, not just kick them out the window. It can't happen. You can't just knock them to a side. You learn to regulate your emotions. You get to a point where your emotions are not doing the decision making for you anymore. They're just present in your mind. And there's biological trace markers that show this. You'll also see this in the second study that I'm going to show now. So as we can see here, emotional state and market behavior. Please do not cite this without permission. I have not taken permission, so hopefully I don't get done for this. But as we can see, this study is attached in the description. You guys can read through this. They've done an entire study in showing how not just a singular trader, but how generally in the markets, how emotions can affect traders' decision making and cognitive ability to also do so too, right? And you can see that in here. It's a very, very in-depth paper. The bit that I want to show you guys is right at the bottom, and it is around, again here, they also use the face reader output to show how facial expressions change in combination with emotion. Subtle facial expression changes, biological trace markers, as I said, and most of you are unaware of this because you think psychology is a scam or it's a hoax, hence why it's still not profitable. I'm yet to meet one trader out there that is profitable that has not worked on their mindset, that has not worked on that psychology, and that has only become successful because they've tested or accumulated data. I'm yet to meet anybody out there. There may be, and if you are, you're a prodigy and I would love to meet you. But again, in almost 6-7 years of trading, I've never met anybody of that like. As we can see here, emotional balance prior to market open and price level. Look how that changes. As we can see, average price per session basically means how confident they were in a certain price versus how fearful they were, which they talk about in the study. fear prior to market open and price level, as we can see here, emotional dynamics in a crash, relationship between neutrality and earnings crash period. All of this is here for you to see. So there's no denying it. There's literally no denying it. And again, an experiment you guys can use very, very simply. Look at your tested data and look at your live performance. Now, no, obviously they're not going to be exactly the same to the number, but if you're not profitable, I want you to simply go back in your testing data and see, are you profitable when you test? And if your answer is yes, and you are not profitable when you're trading live, let's look at this logically. If you didn't know enough, because that could be something, right? Then you wouldn't be profitable when you test, obviously. So if you're profitable when you test, you know what you need to know. What's the only difference between tested data or tested trading, simulated trading, and live trading, as I mentioned? Barring the whole, time warp thing that I mentioned. What's the main core element that's missing? Emotion. So clearly you've got an emotional issue that you have to deal with in live markets. Now, if you're not profitable when you test on any pair that you try, and you can't extract any profitability in the simulated conditions, then of course it's a knowledge issue. You have to accumulate more knowledge around your system and understand it better. So you see how simple you can keep trading. You don't have to overcomplicate it. Let's go back to the presentation for a second. So what is the proper way to build the right experience now? Right, because I said at the beginning, if you guys listen, that data does not lie. I totally agree. Data is very important, but what kind of data is the key here, which we'll dive into. So to close this off, number one, learn the mechanics of your trading methodology. Apply your knowledge to the live markets in real time. Now, if you begin with a small account, again, it doesn't matter of your financial situation. If you can afford mentorship, you can afford a membership, or you can afford a course. There's no way you can't afford putting even $100 into an account. If you can't even afford to put $100 in an account, then get a job, earn an income, and put that money aside. There's no excuses to why you can't afford to put $100 in an account if you can afford all these other luxuries. Begin with a small account with a fixed low risk of 1% position. Now, of course, the psychological ramifications that are going to come on a $100 account compared to 100,000 or even a million is far different. But you've got to start somewhere. Right? It's better than doing demo or just going back and testing. Now, begin with a small account with a fixed low risk of 1% per position. You have to lose 100 trades in a row to lose even £100. So I don't get why people don't just test live forward. What's this fear of losing money, right? You have to get that out of your system. And how's that done? As I said before in the video, training your stress response, your nervous system, your brain to work within those live trading conditions, whereby you get to a point where the winners and the losers just feel the same. It becomes clockwork, but that's drilled into your brain chemistry over a long period of time of live trading done correctly. Done incorrectly, you can be trading live for 5 to 10 years and still have massive emotional turbulences. So done correctly, this way they'll be better adapted. You'll make better decisions. That's how you do it. The reality is you're operating with a human body, which is science driven. There's many different stimuli that affect the way that you operate within the markets. It's not always done by visual stimuli, emotional stimuli. Stress, really important. Train your stress response. Your body will give off biological markers, right? When you're fearful, you'll be breathing altered, right? You have to intentionally de-alter that breathing. You have to actually regulate it again. As an example, you might find, for example, your breathing is very constricted, or you're holding your breath. You might find that you're tense somewhere in your body. You might find that you're profusely sweating, you're shaking. It could be different for everybody, and you're not even aware of that because you think psychology is a scam. So anyway, then you formulate a simple trading criteria, a trading plan. You apply this then each week to the best of your ability. Now, this is going to get better over time, obviously, as is any skill. Tested live, done live, actually jumping into the water and not just learning about how to swim. I think it'll be great one day, and then you jump in the water and it's not what you expected, and now you can't emotionally manage that. Same as driving a car. You can sit around and play Gran Turismo or Forza or these racing games all day. You can use a racing simulator as much as you want. Formula 1 drivers use racing simulators for what though? To learn the mechanics of the racing track, to feel the mechanics to a degree of the car as well, because some of these simulators are pretty advanced. Every single one of them will tell you, when you're actually there in a race and there's people watching you, relying on you, and you can win a lot of money, and you're now racing with real people. Death is also very real when you're racing a Formula 1 car. Your engine can blow, you can catch on fire. You really think they could have accounted for all of that in an F1 simulator? Do you really think, by that premise, that, let's say for example you've learned to race a car in a game, that you can drive it the exact same way on a racing track or in the streets, as an example, which I don't endorse? What about people on the road who might cut you off? What about road rage? What about all these different unaccounted for variables that can happen that a simulator can't account for? How do you emotionally manage that now? It's so silly that I'm having to explain this, but again, carrying on. Utilize the weekend to assess your performance under pressure. Literally look at the week and see, okay, what missed positions did I have? How many invalid trades did I take in accordance to my plan? How many were high risk? How many trades should I have taken? How many trades should I have not taken? Your understanding of that will get better over time with the right mentorship, of course, and you'll eventually merge the gap between current performance and where you should be. And as that gap merges, guess what? Your equity curve begins to rise. And now trading live capital is no longer an issue for you because you've trained your brain and your body to work in that environment. So then when you're given larger money, you're well better adapted to it. And again, this will naturally allow you to refine the right data over time. The right data is the data that you collect from live trading. How did I perform emotionally? How did I apply my knowledge under pressure? Because that's very, very important, right? There's going to be many different trading situations. Testing does not train you to effectively apply knowledge under pressure, which is the sole premise of being a great trader. You can have all this knowledge in the world, but if you can't effectively apply it under different types of pressures, good luck. There's a reason. Look at the reality. Look at your account. Look at why you're not profitable. You don't have to even listen to me. Just look at your account. Look at your performance. Look at the fact that you're not making money, you're not consistent, you're not profitable at a consistent level. You're not even trading at scale. So the results are right in front of you. If you are trading at scale and you are consistently profitable and you're where you need to be, 99% of those kind of people won't even watch my videos because they don't need to, because they've already achieved what they were set out to achieve as a trader. This is not aimed at those people. This is aimed at all of you guys that are not yet consistent and not yet profitable. And categorically, you will fit under the same category that think, I still need to backtest more, I still need to collect more data, I still need to do this. It's a very, very big issue that must get fixed. Biases are real. You'll get in situations where you'll justify higher risk trades. And it could be due to circumstance. It might be because you've missed a few trades. You have this eagerness to make money. You might have a wife who's in your ear all the time. Come on, you need to pay the bills for the kids. What you're doing with this trading thing has been 3 years now. You've still not tried it. Out of anger, you'll build this programming that, okay, I need to attack. I need to get something out of the market. I need to make something happen. I need to take action. You're telling me that's not real. You're telling me that your backtesting is going to help you alleviate that. So, case closed on this. I shouldn't have to explain myself further on this. Live trading is far different to testing. Your testing will not accumulate to your performance in live trading. It's the right data collected, done so correctly, done so practically, week on week. Assess yourself, measure yourself against a simple black and white, dynamic and rigid set of criteria with your system. As I said in the order that I presented, look back and see, I have taken this many trades, this many should have been taken, this many should not have been taken, and I also missed this amount. Work on that data, create a battle plan for the week ahead, rinse and repeat that every single week, and then you will build your trading, and you will save yourself years of pointless and useless stress and pain that you do not need in your trading, and you'll get to where you want to get to much, much quicker. Case closed.